So today's video is super exciting because it is a request. I was sent I was sent one video, but it's a two-part series from one of my followers on Instagram. Thank you. And it was a video all about how to get a man to propose. But it really wasn't about how to get a man to propose. It was about the societal pressure of women in their mid to late 20s to get married. Now, you all know that I'm a married woman, and I am very passionate about marriage, spirituality, fashion, and femininity, which is something that I'm going to be talking about on my channel. Currently, the Femininity Challenge is going to happen in the Patreon community, in the Naturally Fashionable Patreon community. So I will leave a link to my Patreon page if you're interested in figuring out how to use your femininity in romance, life, and love to get the desires of your heart and what you want. So yeah, it's going to be amazing, but I'll do another video about that. Let's get back to this. So the book is written by Joi-Marie McKenzie, and the title of the book is The Engagement Game: I Don't to Marriage and I Do to Me. And the premise of the book is to discuss, you know, the process that a woman goes through in her 20s while she is trying to decide if she's ready to get married, and just dealing with, you know, the outside world as far as the journey, you know. So the book starts with her, I think, around the age of 28, and she's just speaking of how she felt so much pressure to get married. And basically, when she finally did get the ring, she was not prepared to be married, and essentially she didn't want to be married, or realized that she didn't want to be married because she wasn't ready, and basically she would be settling if she married the particular man that she was in a relationship with. So the video, and I will leave a link to the videos, there's two of them, features a group of women discussing love and marriage and their thoughts. And so I'm going to give you my reaction to this video and play some clips, and hopefully YouTube won't take this down or anything. I read up on it. I think I understand copyright and all of that, but if I don't, you live and you learn. So let's get right into it. The first young lady who spoke about societal pressure, and I'm going to play her clip now.
No, personally, I've never actually felt pressure to get married, and on one hand I think it's because I'm so career oriented, but on another hand I just feel like it is such a societal pressure that's very unnecessary, and also just distracts us as women from actually getting to know who we are.
So as you heard, she spoke about how she doesn't feel the pressure to get married, and she doesn't want to ever get married, which, let me first say, that's totally fine. I don't believe any woman has to get married or have children or live her life in any stereotypical way. I am traditional, but I'm also modern. Me and my husband have been married for 12 years, going on 13 years in June, and we haven't had kids yet. So we didn't do things the stereotypical way either. You know, we kind of enjoyed it being us, and we've never really had a problem with that. But that doesn't mean that we don't want children. It just means that it wasn't at the top of our priority list. So I do understand wanting to break away from society norms, even though I am more of a traditionalist. As far as what she said, I can definitely understand why someone in their 20s could feel pressure. I also think it depends on how you were raised. I know some cultural backgrounds are very, very serious when it comes to getting married. And so I totally understand that. But for me personally, first of all, let me say marriage is a beautiful thing when you marry the right person. It's beyond anything you could ever imagine. And I also feel she said that marriage distracts from you becoming who you are, something of that nature. Like, it distracts us from walking in our purpose or focusing on ourselves and our goals or what we're motivated about in life. And I don't think that's true. I met my husband in college. We were both pretty driven people. We were two young, crazy kids. But when I met him, I knew he was the one very, very soon. I mean, I felt it. It was an energy. And then once I met his family, I saw how he grew up. I saw we had similar backgrounds. There was no doubt in my mind that this was going to be my husband. I felt that energy from the very beginning, and that's young and in love. As an older woman, I don't know if I would have jumped head first in the way I did, but I'm glad that I did because I chose the right person to allow to pursue me. He was the right person to pursue me. The next young lady who spoke on the clip, her perspective was, I think, she made a good point, but I felt like who gets married without going through a thought process of, am I ready to get married? Am I truly ready to get married?
It wasn't like, do I actually want to be married to this person? Am I really ready? Is he really ready? Are either one of us emotionally mature enough? No, we weren't. Like, don't get married at like 23. Like, no, you're not ready. Like, anyone watching, you're not ready. I don't care. Like, are we emotionally ready? Are we emotionally mature? We had never even talked about, like, how are the finances going to go? Do we want kids?
I mean, when I got married at the age, I think I was 24. When I got married, that was very young, and I knew I wanted to be, there was no doubt in my mind that I wanted to marry my husband. There was no doubt. So the whole idea of going through the motions is a very bad idea if you are someone hoping to get married or aspiring to get married. I think that's just a bad way to get married. I mean, I think before you get married, you should get marriage counseling. I think that you should talk about finances. I think you should talk about if you both want children. I think you should talk about what a wife looks like to your future husband, or what a husband would look like to his future wife, so that you guys are very clear on how to build a relationship. I did a little research just to see, statistics on, marrying young. I am an advocate for marrying in your early 20s or marrying when you're younger, because I think your chances of getting married are higher. I think if you do want to have children, obviously it's better to get married at a younger age where you're more fertile. And I think there are a couple of benefits of getting married when you're young, but I'm just going to throw this one up. A study showed that young married men on average drink less, they work harder, they make more money, and they are more likely to feel that they have the right partner. Younger couples report having more frequent sex, and research shows that all of that contributes to having a happier marriage. Also, those who marry in their 20s are more likely to marry someone who isn't previously married and who shares their level of educational attainment as well as their religious faith. Now, you guys know that these things are super important to me. So I personally would never want to marry someone that has children from a previous marriage. I know some people don't mind that. I personally don't really want to marry someone who's been married before. And that's just a personal preference. That doesn't mean that that's the right way. When you marry older, I think people come with a whole lot of baggage. So it's just something to think about while you're waiting and working on your career and thinking oh, I can't work on my career and be married, which is not true. You have to find the right person that believes in your dreams and wants you to achieve the things that you want to achieve in life. Next up, we have Bitter Betty. Now, I'm not name calling, I promise. She described herself as bitter, and while the other women seemed to try to boost her up and say, no, you're not bitter, I got a bitter vibe from her. Let's check it out.
Full disclosure, I'm probably gonna sound like a very bitter woman, but I also married very young. I was 20, and I was in a very abusive marriage. I come out of that realizing marriage ain't shit. It just is not. It's not a real thing. What I realized out of that was that having children is actually like a real marriage, because that's someone you're literally always going to be with.
Children is the marriage. I cannot agree with that. For one reason, I personally don't have any children, and I've been married for quite a long time. So just off my own personal experience, I would say that children in no way, shape, or form is the marriage. Children are a part of a marriage. And I think having children is probably one of the best things that you could ever do in your life. I do believe that the love that you experience with a child probably is the only kind of unconditional love that you will ever experience in your life. I mean, I think my mother loves me more than she probably loves herself. You know, I've seen that in my parents, how hard they work for me. I've seen that in other mothers that I admire. So obviously with a child comes a form of unconditional love that you may not experience with your spouse, because if you have standards, the love between you and your spouse is conditional. You may always love your spouse, but you may not stay with them if they decide to cheat on you or physically abuse you or verbally abuse you or not go to work and pay the bills. You know, there are conditions to marriage, and that is individual to each relationship. But to say that children is the marriage, I think that's a weird kind of distorted way to think of marriage, because you could have a very successful, happy marriage without children, and you could have a very successful marriage with children.
Like from the women's perspective, about why some people are unsatisfied and not able to find relationships because of the kinds of things that they're asking for that may not actually be what they need.
I think one of the big ironies of our time is that we live in this period in history where women have unprecedented autonomy and unprecedented access to the opposite sex, and you would think that women would use that agency. They would not stay in a relationship beyond 2 years if it hasn't resulted in what they wanted, that they would date multiple men for.
So the next two clips deal with standards, in my opinion. I think that when you are deciding if you should accept a proposal from a man or if you should even stay in a relationship, I think that a lot of people think, well, he will change, or I could deal with this because he's so fine, or I could deal with this because he, you know, he has this or he does this. You have to set the standards for yourself in a relationship. Some women want men to be financially stable. I think every woman should want a man to be financially stable. Some women want a man to understand the family dynamic. And I think the women in this clip really hit the nail on the head with, you know, it's your standard. It's what you want out of life. If you choose to be with a man who does not treat you right, or you go through a situation with him and he totally flips on you and you decide to stay in that relationship, well, that's on you, sis. That's on you. I feel like women look at the superficial. He has to be tall. He has to be light-skinned. He got to be dark-skinned. Listen, baby, if he has a good job with a good check and good morals and values and treats you like a complete queen, I think looks should be on the back burner. Of course, you want chemistry with your partner, but chemistry is not going to bring you the things in life that you need. It's only going to last for so long. Those butterflies in your stomach is only going to last for so long before you're looking at your spouse like, whoa, you're not handling what you need to handle. You're not there for me emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. There's so much that goes into marriage that I don't even think people realize. I totally feel that idea of you can say we're spiritual partners, we don't need a ring, we don't need a piece of paper to prove we love each other. All of that to me is a bunch of bull. All right, the last young lady is unique, not only because I totally 100% agree with her perspective, she's the only married one.
There are 3 ways to think about marriage. Marriage is a legal contract. marriage is a cultural or a familial experience. And for us, marriage is a spiritual commitment. We continue to develop within our marriage because we're still continuing to develop in our relationship with God. That's how we identify it for us.
So she was the only married one in the room, and her perspective came from a spiritual point of view. And her point of view was, you don't have to know exactly who you are when you get married, because who knows exactly who they are at any time in your life? If you are somebody that is growing and that's evolving, you're always changing. I have changed so much since I've gotten married. I'm not that same 23-year-old girl who got engaged as I sit here as a woman in her 30s. It's just not the same. I've changed. But the one thing I can tell you is, me and my husband share the same values, we share the same principles, we have the same relationship goals, and we believe that God is the head of our marriage. We use practical thought processes and skills and strategies, but at the head of it all, we believe that God is the head. And our marriage is more than just a piece of paper. It is a covenant that we also have with God. Listen to this. Whether young or old, male or female, low income or not, those who said that they were more religious reported higher average levels of commitment to their partners, higher levels of marital satisfaction, less thinking and talking about divorce, and lower levels of negative interaction. These patterns held true when controlling for such important variables as income, education, and age at first marriage. One thing me and my husband decided to do early in our marriage was not to talk about divorce. We decided that divorce was going to be a word that we threw into the trash can. And we never bring up divorce when we are having any type of issue or any type of problem. Now, if something would have come up like adultery, or you don't want to go to work or something like that, we'll have to revisit topics like that. But when we get into an argument, when we are having communication issues, we don't talk about divorce. We don't go to other people outside of our marriage. We turn inward and we turn to each other. And I think that that is one thing that you get from spirituality. So kudos to that young lady for putting God at the center of her marriage. I highly recommend everyone have a relationship with God, because I feel like it does change your marriage and it changes your life. So you guys, those are my thoughts about the video. Leave your responses below and your opinions. If you have advice about marriage, if you are married, newly married, looking to get married, what are your thoughts about anything that these ladies said? I will leave a link to the video in the description box. And yeah, I will be back to talk more about life. This channel is lifestyle. Fashion, love, business, it's everything. And I love my new platform. And yeah, I will see you next time. Bye.